Let's talk just a little bit about the basics of bookkeeping for your business. I'll start with a question. Do you know the difference between accounting and bookkeeping? About $150 an hour, but bumps. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be here all week. Bookkeeping is basically the day-to-day financial management of your business, creating bills for your clients, booking the revenues, paying the bills, and making payroll. All of the day-to-day financial transactions would probably fit under the heading of bookkeeping. Generally, you could probably do a lot of the bookkeeping yourself if the business is small enough, and if time allows. You could probably outsource that bookkeeping to a local professional. A lot of different ways to handle the bookkeeping element of your business. Accounting is a much more specialized function. An accountant is probably somebody that you might need up to 4 times a year, maybe to help you do some quarterly reports. And an accountant helps you understand what the tax burden is for your business and how to pay it. So bookkeeping is a little bit more simple. The main thing that I want to tell you about bookkeeping is that you really need some kind of a system for your business. I don't know, I'm not here to tell you what kind of system that you need. I will tell you that QuickBooks, for example, has been pretty widely recognized and pretty widely used by small businesses for quite some time. Most accountants and bookkeepers are pretty fluent with QuickBooks. They can probably help you get it set up so that you can do a lot of the day-to-day record keeping for your business, and then you can send it to them over the internet as an attached file that they can look at on their QuickBooks program, and that makes things pretty handy. I would also tell you that there have been a lot of developments in bookkeeping software over the last few years. I ate lunch with somebody recently who took a picture of the receipt with his iPhone, and I can't remember the name of the bookkeeping program that he was using, but it basically scanned the receipt, categorized it, and input it into his bookkeeping system right there while we were sitting at lunch. So there are a lot of options, a lot of newer options, but the main point that I want to tell you is that you do need some kind of a system. And no, a shoebox full of receipts is not a very good system. If you take a shoebox full of receipts into your accountant on March 1st and ask them to get your taxes done by April 15th, you might be a little bit disappointed, because accountants tend to be pretty busy, and probably the first thing they'll do is file an extension and tell you you'll have it by September. The other thing that I would tell you about bookkeeping is that as a small business owner, you really should develop some awareness of the main financial statements that your business produces. There are 3 main financial statements. The first one is the income statement, also known as the profit and loss, and it basically shows the revenues and expenses and the profits or losses of your business over some period of time. The statement of cash flows is similar. Over a period of time, the statement of cash flows examines the cash flowing in and out of your business. The third one is just a little bit more complicated. It's called a balance sheet. A balance sheet doesn't examine a period of time, rather it examines a snapshot in time. And it basically shows you the assets and the liabilities of the business. The formula for the balance sheet is assets equal liabilities plus owner's equity. Again, this is not a financial statement that shows a period of time, but rather just a snapshot. And basically it tells you who owns what and how much of it do they own. Bookkeeping doesn't have to be complicated, and I don't want you to think even for a minute that you should feel forced to use QuickBooks or any other kind of program. For some businesses that I own, I actually use Excel to keep my records. And the way that I use Excel, I think, is pretty simple. I file my taxes using a Schedule C, and Schedule C has a bunch of boxes. Revenue, box 8 I think is advertising expense, box 9 is car expense, you've got advertising expense, facilities expense, employment or contract labor expense, home office expense, and basically every time that I perform a transaction for my business, one of the businesses that I have owned is that I've owned and managed rental properties. Fortunately, there are not a lot of transactions over the course of a month or a year, so it's easy enough for me to keep up just typing things into Excel. Every time I have an expense, I just I have a list of tabs across the bottom of my Excel page, and I click the appropriate tab and I put in the date, who I paid, how much I paid them, and what was the reason. If you have a business that doesn't generate a lot of financial transactions, that might be an easy way for you to go. Last thing I would tell you is, if nothing else, you can go to Office Depot and for about $20 buy a good old-fashioned ledger book, maybe even a green eye shade if you want, and just keep track of it by hand using an old-school ledger book. Any of these systems would be preferable to a shoebox full of receipts. Again, main point here is, for bookkeeping, you should have a system, and when it comes to financial management of your business, you should make some effort to learn a little bit about each of the three financial statements. It's important because these financial statements tell you about the real world events that have impacted your business. I happen to love sports, and I would compare the financial statements to your business to box scores of sporting events. Here at the University of Kansas, we are blessed to have a fabulous basketball coach by the name of Bill Self. And after every game, I'm always impressed by how well Bill Self knows and understands the statistics that reflect the real world events that took place in the game. He's likely to be able to tell you how many three-pointers his team shot, how many they made, how many free throws they made and missed, how many turnovers they had. A great basketball coach like Bill Self uses this information to help guide the future direction of his team. If KU is missing a lot of free throws in several games, for example, I'm sure that Bill Self has his guys shoot free throws at the end of practice when they're really tired. If they're turning the ball over a lot, I would suspect that Bill Self practices ball security drills. And as a small business owner, I think it's really important that you develop a way of understanding the financial statements that your business produces to do the same thing for your business. What's going on in my business? What do these numbers tell me about the real world events in my business? And then how can I use those numbers to impact the future of my business? A lot of small business owners make the mistake of letting the numbers go in one ear and out the other, and they send everything to the accountant, let them figure out the taxes, and then they don't do anything with the information that's contained in those financial statements. I think it's really important for you to make some effort to develop a way to understand it, even if you have to simplify things. We call that financial dashboarding. What are the really key measurements, the key financial measurements of your business? What do they look like over time? What are the simple steps that you can take to understand them and impact the real world events that are reflected in those financial statements? So if you can do those things, I think it will help you as you move forward in your career as an entrepreneur.